and so on. So we will start now in 2 minutes. So get ready, and if you want to get a beer, it's your final option. Ready. Emma?
Sì, è andato.
Va. Ok, welcome to Speck&Tech. Applause. Okay, it's our 8th event right now, and this one is named Spinning Up. What we want to do is telling you ways to speed your process up, techniques that allows you to save money, save time, and of course shorten the process of developing or designing and all these kind of techniques. As always, we have a 5 minutes presentation at the beginning for our sponsors. We have Impact Hub. I don't know if Giulio wants to say anything. Okay. As always, the space here that is hosting us, our events, they're awesome. They're increasing a lot the space that it's over there. There's a new hub that is waiting for you. If you want to come here, meet people, work, meet a number of entrepreneurs, have a space where you can work at your projects or mingle with some people and maybe find financing or whatever, I think it's a good opportunity. The people right there can listen to me? Yeah? Okay. Because this time we don't have a microphone, so our volume needs to be a bit louder. So we have Belka. Giulio is the CEO. We have a number of other people here working for Belka. They do website developments, application, games, and so on. And they're one of our co-founders. And then we have Yeti Digital, and a cool thing that we're starting from the next week, from next Thursday, we're gonna have a series which is called Innovation Talks, where we're gonna invite entrepreneurs, we're gonna invite success people to talk what was their path, what was their project, how they started their startup, how they scaled it up. And we're gonna have this guy who's called Yari, who's going to present what he has done so far, what he has achieved, and he's one of the co-founders of Industria, which is one of the biggest companies here in the area that allow you to scale up, especially regarding hardware companies and other startups. So we're going to have this event during a lunch break. Keep in touch with us in our channel, and we will tell you more about it and so on. And then we have Segata. Who was this? This is our main sponsor because he's giving us the Speck and all the cold cuts and the food and the cheese you're gonna eat in a couple of hours. No, probably less. Anyway, they're great. They're based in Gardalo. They have a hub as well, which is the main hub in Sopramonte. And they have everything. If you want to have a barbecue, now the weather is still shit, but in a couple of months it's going to be awesome. So if you want to have a barbecue, it's going to be awesome if you go by them and you get meat and you get sausages and you get pasta di lucanica and a couple of things. Finally, we have our website. I don't know if you noticed, but in the past few weeks we increased a lot of stuff that we have in our website, and we have all the previous issues. We have all the contents, the title, the slides, the abstract, and every speaker that presented at our Speck&Tech put their slides over there. So if you're interested in what we have done so far, if you would like to know more about the people that presented, what they said about a certain topic and so on, you just go on our website and we have everything there. We also have a new email, so you can contact us for anything at speck&tech@gmail.com. And like us on Facebook, as always, we have more than 200 people on our Telegram channel. We try not to spam a lot. We don't spam for the next 15 days. But after when the event is coming closer and closer, we say once per day, hey guys, we have this event, this is the next event coming up, and so on. Keep in touch. And we already have a date for the next event. In 1 month, we're going to have, on the 27th of February, which is a Monday, we're going to have the next issue. And it's going to be about, a topic I cannot tell you, but it's going to be awesome for sure. Finally, we're ready to start. Before starting, I would like to thank everyone that helped so far. So not only the founders of Speck&Tech like Giulio, Luca, Willow, Sam, and so on, but also people like Michele, like our other Michele, like those guys there in the back preparing the spec and cutting down. So big applause to them as well.
And those two guys who moved the chairs, thank you.
I said already. Okay, one more second, and we have our first speakers on the stage. Where are they? Okay. Alessio and Tiago. Okay, these two guys are going to talk about serverless, which I know nothing about coding, so they can tell you better than me. But I think you can introduce yourself a bit at the beginning, and yeah, just need to press down if you want. I don't know how it works. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
My name is Tiago, and I work as a software developer together with Alessio in X-Papers. And I'm also the founder of Elite, that is a new software company here in Trento.
I'm Alessio, I'm a worker of X-Papers, and okay.
Okay. Everyone can listen back there? Yeah? Okay. Okay. So we are going to present serverless and how you can use serverless to make a bot, a Facebook Messenger bot in minutes. Okay.
Okay.
So first of all, what is serverless? We try to make a little definition that is custom code that is run in a ephemeral context, more known as function as service or FAS. And now we are going to try to unpack this definition. First, by custom code, we meant the application that we want to execute. It's the service that we want to provide to our users. Then, by ephemeral context, we mean like an abstraction layer on top of, for example, a platform as service, like for example, Heroku. But it's still a service. It's still a server. Serverless doesn't mean that you don't have servers. The code is still executed in a remote machine, but it's an abstraction layer on top of that. Then it's ephemeral because it's only created to run our code, and afterwards it's destroyed. So it means that this context has no state and has no persistence. So you have to manage the persistence in other ways. And a function as service, because you write your code inside of a function, of a template that the cloud provider gives you, and you only worry about writing this part of the code. And this function is triggered by an event, a remote event, that can be an HTTP call if you are making an API, or it can be, for example, when you upload a file in a storage system. So we have this function that is triggered by an event, and it runs within a context, a well-defined context. The main features of serverless, it's that it has no operations or a different type of operations. You don't have to worry about maintenance, you don't have to worry about provisioning the machines or upgrading your server. You only worry about your code and your application. Then, since this function is stateless, it has no state, it has built-in scaling. You can scale in parallel, horizontally, automatically. Another feature is that you only pay for when you are using, when the function is actually running. You don't pay for when the server is idle and is receiving no requests. Another feature, and you can see it as a drawback or maybe not, is that you have to manage the persistence of the state. So you have to attach a database or a storage system, and in there you maintain the state of your system. A lot of cloud computing providers already have this kind of feature. The first one was Amazon with the AWS Lambda, but also Google, Microsoft, and IBM provide this kind of infrastructure. You can work with serverless just with your code. You can deploy it a simple file of code, but you can also use a framework. that lets you avoid repetitive tasks, like for example creating this kind of functions, deploying your code, or updating your code. We'll see more later on the demo. You have different runtimes. This depends on the provider that you are using, but you have all the popular runtimes like Node.js. You can run Java, Python, and basically any language that you can compile, even if the provider doesn't support it, you can call it from one of these languages. Now we are going to the funny part, that is to create a bot. For this demo, we are going to use AWS Lambda, and we are going to use the framework Claudia.js. And we are going to develop a Node.js application that is a Facebook Messenger bot. So
Now, we can start by following these 8 steps. And it's very simple. The first step is to deploy our Claudia and bot builder dependencies and to init our project. And we are in an empty folder, and with an npm init, we can init our project. npm is a node package manager, and with this we can handle all the package that we require. The next step is to install all the dependencies. The first dependency is Claudia.js, and we install it globally on our machine with the flag G. The next dependency is Claudia Bot Builder. That is a package that we use and save it on our package JSON created with initialization of the project. The next step is define our function, our very simple function. It's an hello world. Now we can open our folder with an editor we prefer. I prefer Sublime Text, but it's not important. We save a file, for example, Node.js, bot.js, and the first thing we do is to require our dependency. Okay. Then we have to export our function that will be triggered by Facebook when a user sends a message. The bot builder requires a function with a message parameter. For simplicity, we return a simple hello world. Now we can define in which platform we want it to work. If we want to use our function in multiple platforms, like Telegram, Facebook, and Skype, and so on, we just insert all the platform like this. But for now, we are deploying only to Facebook. The next step, the third, is to deploy to AWS Lambda. In our command line, we just insert this command. The region flag means that we are uploading our function into a specific region in the world to the AWS servers. This is the only one that I remember. And we have to define API module. With the API module, we define our file in our system where is put the lambda, our function. In this case, we have created a bot.js file, and we can skip the extension. In the creation process, our framework creates the endpoints, the HTTP endpoints, and then creates our function to the region of the AWS. We are waiting seconds. API Gateway is a service of the AWS that provides these HTTP events in response to a request. Now we can proceed with the steps and go to the fourth step, is to create a Facebook Messenger app. Now we have to go on our Firefox or a browser and go to developers.facebook.com. Is the Facebook developers platform, and we have to add a new app. We just select a name, Speck&Tech bot in this case, and an apps for Messenger. We have to choose a category. It's not important. This is the most difficult step in this example.
Maybe you are wrong. D. Or E.
A. I mean, okay. Phew. And now we have our app. The next step is the creation the page and get the access token in order to permit our function to can access Facebook API. Now we have to give a Facebook page. If don't have one, we can create a new one. Okay. Is my hotspot working? Overnight. We choose a category of product, random. It's not important this. And we create the page. Just for simplicity, we set up a button of the page with the send message action. And then we can refresh our application, Facebook application page. Now we can select our Speck&Tech bot page, permit with the other permission to the account, and then copy the access token. Now we are ready to go to the step 6, is to update the function, our function, with the page access token and configure it. We can configure the Facebook access token simply by creating this command, update, configure Facebook bot. In the update process, our framework creates a new version of our function and then redirect all HTTP requests to our new version. And if we go to AWS console, developer console, we can see each version that we have deployed. The upload process take a while. Okay. We have to insert the page access token. I don't remember if we had copy already. And we have to insert the Facebook app secret. App secret can be found in the dashboard of our application. Simply by showing the app secret. All right. All right. Copy and insert. Now we have deployed and configured our Lambda. Let's see in action. The last in order to work our function is to add a Facebook Messenger webhook. We have to configure our webhook in the Facebook Developers Platform. Scroll down a bit. Webhook. Is too small. Okay. Set up webhooks, and we have to insert callback URL and verify token. These two elements can be found in the previous process. We can find this. Oops. We can copy it. Sure. And the verify token. And we have to subscribe our function to this event, messages and messaging prospects. The almost last step is to subscribe our SpeckBot page to our webhooks. The eighth step is to publish our Facebook application. We have to go in a preview and publish the page. Now, if we try to test our button, our messaging application, we can send a random message, and our bot will respond, "Hello world." Now we can see how Facebook send us the information required that we require to build our application. In order to do that, we can parse this message. This is a JSON object, and return it as a string. Now we can see how simple is the updating process. And so on. We have to wait each time for a while. But with a good connection, it's not a problem. Okay. Now we can see our new response. This is a JSON object. If we parse it, we can see these parameters. The original request is the request originally sent by from our Facebook platform when a user sends a message. And the other parameters are parsed by our bot builder application, bot builder package, in order to unify our message structure through each platform. If we use a Telegram bot, we have already sender text type each time. Now, just for joke, just for fun, I created previously an example, and I copy it in our bot and update. This example, the bot that I created is ask a question to us, and we can respond by clicking a button, simply. Now, meanwhile, we can see briefly the code. We use a Facebook template, is a functionality of Claudia Bot Builder package that give us a more advanced functionality to use in our Facebook application or a Telegram application. Is a template for each platform, and we can add quick reply or other things in this manual. Now the application was updated, and we can try it. If you want, you can go in Speck&Tech bot page on the Facebook and try yourself the bot. As you see, the Speck&Tech bot asks us why we are here today. If we selected Speck, how dare you, disgusting! And I want to give you a hint. You can select the tech in your smartphone. In the tech, you can have a gift.
But this is not public. It's not public right now.
Yes, it's public already.
Sure?
Yes.
I can't find it.
Yes, Speck&Tech bot. All right. Another message. The tech button gives you a URL, a link to our presentation, in order to permit to reply this bot for each one. Now we have terminated the presentation almost, and if you are interested in to try AWS Lambda and the really simple Facebook bot, you can fork my GitHub repo and try it yourself. Thank you.
The thing that we demo is a very simple concept, no, but it shows how simple it is to get started with serverless. But for example, you could do something much more complex. In here, it's an example of a live video streaming processing application, where you have a lot of streamers there that go through a content delivery network, and then you have each Lambda function that processes the different streaming. So you can have different encodings for different streamings, and this is all parallel and can be automatically scaled as you grow the number of streamers. And in here you can distribute the contents to different clients. Just to show, it's very simple to get started, but you can also do very elaborated things using the serverless pattern. The nice thing about using, for example, AWS Lambda is that you can get started very quickly and for free. Each month you have 1 million requests, so you can do a lot of experiments. And then afterwards, you pay 20 cents per 1 million requests, and you also pay for the seconds that your Lambda and the memory that it consumes. But if you are a student and you have done the GitHub student pack, you have 100 euros per month free to experiment on AWS. In here you can see an example of how linear it is to evolve the cost of a serverless function using this kind of pattern. We also put in here some reference if you want to explore the concept, or if you want to replicate the examples that we've shown, and you can try out different ideas. And that's all. Thank you.
So this is my microphone this time.
Questions?
Okay, guys, any questions to these guys? I can come there with the microphone. Oh, come on, nobody?
Is AWS the default choice of Claudia? Is AWS the default choice of AWS?
No, the AWS provides the serverless framework, is maintained by them. Cloudera is another one, is open source.
Because I don't see any configuration about AWS or in the...
Yes, yeah, that we've done, set up the account and the permissions we've done before, because it's a very noise, it's very process.
In the repo, in this repo, there is a restriction about it.
But it's only, you create an AWS account and set a user with the correct permissions. And the nice thing is that these frameworks helps you creating the roles just to execute that function. So from the security point of view, it's everything managed by this framework.
I have a question, maybe it's a bit stupid, but every time you want to try something, you need to publish it on Facebook, right? You cannot run any changes locally.
No, but is the test functionality on Facebook there up?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So nobody.
You set up your app in a test environment.
But now I'm trying
something like.
I'm trying now your bot, but it doesn't really reply. So because it's still in test functionality.
No, I think no.
I think that the bot you're looking is a old version that they tried it before, and it's from. It has the same name, but it's not the same one.
Okay, got it.
No, but you can set, for example, 2 pages, and one you make private, and the other public, and then you switch between.
Any other questions?
How much
Shoot!
How much complex can it be, an app like this?
A serverless application or a physical? It depends. For example, if
Create a database to save dates or something similar?
yeah, like I was saying, the storage part we didn't get on that, you know, but you have to manage externally. You can use
Service.
a service also for AWS or another one. For example, in here is S3, that is a key value storage type, and you can, for example, the streamers are processing the files and then are storing it on a bucket that is called, that is a key value storage, but you can use a DB. And if you are using an approach like using a microservice architecture, the application can be as complex as you need it.
And can scale.
It can scale automatically. It really doesn't have a limit of how complex it can be.
You developed already bots for X-Factors?
No.
No.
Okay.
Just for
But
this
we
demo.
had used Lambda before,
okay.
AWS Lambda.
Okay.
For example, a project that we have done is one where a lot of photographers upload pictures, and these pictures have to be resized in different sizes. And a lot of photographers upload this kind of photographs. If we are doing the traditional way, where we have a server, and this server processes all the photographs in batch time, it will be first. It could have more complexity, and second, it didn't scale as well as this approach. Because in here, you upload one picture, the picture gets resized, different lambdas resize the picture, and then put it available to be consumed by the application. So it certainly has its application. It's not that you can do a serverless everything, but there are certain use cases that make more sense than others.
Final question?
Can you access the remote server and looking for debug information, even if there isn't actually a server? So can you find where the request came up and was replied, and if there was an error?
There is a CloudWatch service into AWS, in which you can see all the logs of all services in the AWS environment. And to retrieve the debug information is one of the problems of that function of that architecture, because it's not simple, not so simple.
Okay.
Cool, thank you. Okay guys, 5 minutes break. Go there, grab a beer, and then we are ready for the second one. Thank you.
Che bella che è la prima fila.
Sempre stato steso così, la sessione di non fa quindi sono gli 8 che sono gli 10 la sessione però senza nome. Vabbè, dai, sono stufare. 105. Poi fuori che sei un po'. No, ma allora basta 27. La portata di piloti.
Che metto via.
Se ho finito
Giulio, Giulio, vieni qua. Oh.
Sì, comunque come tutte le cose dipende da...
Ma se avevamo un microfono troppo. Hello back. Okay, half an hour to go for the spec. And now we have Giulio, our co-founder, presenting the design sprint. That's a technique developed by Google Ventures. No spoiler. And I guess he's going to tell you more. An applause.
Hello everyone! So the topic is clear, design sprint. So almost.
There's still a lot of places here in front. A few minutes to come.
Yes. Okay, so fun. Okay, so a little bit of myself, so you can know who's the guy talking. I'm Giulio. I'm an entrepreneur, co-founder of Belka, and co-founder of Speck&Tech, which, in case you're wondering, is this event. And trivia, once I spoke for TEDx, and I like dogs, as you can probably understand from the next slides. So, what is a design sprint? A design sprint is a 5-day process to understand critical business questions through design, prototyping, and testing ideas, and talking with your customers. Okay, so the technique has been developed by Google Ventures and has been used by different companies in different contexts for different products. This means that you don't really need just to test digital products, but you can test like a t-shirt, you can test a physical space, you can test on hardware gear. It's not necessarily just digital stuff. Some example of companies that use the sprint are those one. Yes, successful companies, and some of them even arrived to very cool project like Slack, which has been the fastest growing app service ever. So, enough with trying to convince you that it's cool. Let's see how it works. So, this is the usual loop of launching a product. So, you have an idea, you think, yes, I will be next Mark Zuckerberg. Then you build it, and this takes a lot of time and effort and stress. It involves usually other people, unless you're Superman, but for me at least it's not the case. And at least you learn. What does it mean? That you have built something that you put on the market, you put in the hands of your customers, and then at the very end you understood if they like it or not. Because if it's not, which is unfortunately most of the cases, you will have to go ahead and start the loop again. Which means that you probably put a lot of time and effort and yada 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 in this part, which is expensive. And nobody likes to waste time. So that's why the sprint is cool, because you basically cut the process to a very tight loop, a 5-day loop, which is really tight compared to an entire construction. and you get feedback before starting, like you would with the finished project. And then you're probably asking yourself, this looks like magic, 5 days is not enough, as this bug is wondering. So let's see how it works. There are a lot of rules about the sprint. Again, you're probably wondering who decided that. Well, Google Ventures is a venture capital. They give money to people to build products. That's basically what venture capital is. And they ran like hundreds of sprints. They didn't start as a sprint. They were like just consultant designer going to projects that were going to hell, and they needed to put it back to rails. Sprint after sprint, which wasn't called sprint the first time, they started to develop a technique, which is this kind of package, and they saw that this kind of technique is useful, and that's how they tested it, and that's how they put the rules. Again, and this is not like written on the stone, it's not ironclad, you can adjust as much as you can, but this is like the recommended recipe from Google, so at least for me it worked very well. So let's start with the basics. You need a team like Ocean's 11, maybe a little bit diverse, not just white people, and in order to get interesting results from the sprint, you need a diverse team. It wasn't just a joke. You can't run a sprint with like 7 designers, 7 engineers, 7 CEOs, if your company has. Why? Because you need different point of views. The main goal of the sprint is testing your hypothesis, and in order to do that at the best possible, in the best possible way, you need a diverse point of view. Each person from your team has a different perspective on your project. The engineers see things that the CEO doesn't see, that the designer doesn't see, that the DevOps doesn't see, and goes and goes and goes. Except from the CEO, which usually can't see anything. And that's why you need to include him. You need to include, again, in the team, someone who can decide. What does it mean? If you run a sprint for 5 days, you work like a horse, and then in the very end, it comes the decider and says, you know guys, I don't really like it. I think that it's a very cool exercise, but in the end, we won't use this. You wasted 5 days.
Then you might not have the one who decides anymore.
Sorry?
Then you might not have the one who decides anymore after this.
It really depends on the hierarchy of your company, because if you're a startup, this can be the case, but if you're like Google, and that's the head of your department, you can't really try to fire him.
I mean, he might be damaged.
Yeah, it might be, but really, it happens in a lot of different projects, even internal projects, even in very small environments. So you need to have people who have the last word, because organizations in normal, let's say, company world aren't a real democracy. Usually you have a final decider, which is the guy who has that role in the company. You need a room too. This sounds quite obvious, but it's not, because you need a room with whiteboards. Let's take an example. This room doesn't fit. You don't have any whiteboard. You don't have any space on the walls. It's really inconvenient for a sprint environment. You need empty walls. You need whiteboards, and you need a place where you will stay for 5 days, and you will work just on the sprint. So you can't really do it like in an open space, because people are working on other stuff and you will disturb them. And last, this is the very king of the sprint, which is this object. It's quite nice. And it's not magic, it's a timer. It's 5 days, so you need to be really tight on the schedule. You need to time box everything, because otherwise you will screw up the sprint. It's really easy to go into the feedback loop, and it's a loop where you can't really come out. Some other rules. Yeah, it's really like a lot of rules. No technology. This means that paper, post-it, and pens, and pineapple are enough. Except on day 4, but it really depends on the product you're trying to test. So not like, again, it's not a Aaron kind of rule. But the point is, in no technology, is you can't do other work. You can't do like a sprint, a part-time sprint. You can't do like, yeah, guys, it will be tomorrow in the morning, then Wednesday, then Friday, and then good luck, everybody, bye, and the other people doesn't work because it's not useful. You don't get any meaningful result. This means that you don't use technology to answer email during the sprint time, and it's very time boxed again. You have time in the morning, you have time at lunch, and you have time in the evening where you can reply emails. This is very demanding from the point of view of the team you involve. And we talk about this later, more in depth, since I've run one sprint. But this is really demanding and means that you don't have a commitment on doing the sprint. Again, it won't work. So let's see day by day what happens during the sprint. First, you define a map. Basically, you define a long-term goal. This is like a good example of a long-term goal, but this doesn't happen. It's really, I'd like to be like Beyonce. But it's a long-term, you can't do it overnight. You need to have a small project that puts you in the position of being like Beyonce, of the Beyonce company. And so you can ask yourself, why are we doing this project in the first place, and where we want to be in 1 year, in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and this helps to get the correct goal for the whole sprint. Then you make a map of the whole process where the problem you're trying to solve is involved. So a couple of examples, there is Blue Bottle Coffee, which is a company who sells coffee, and they were trying to, they wanted to go online and sell coffee over there, so they mapped all the process. So you get news from the media, or you come by Google, or you see on the social media, then you are in the website, then you decide what you want to buy, then you're at the checkout, and then you receive the coffee. And they mapped the whole customer journey that the people are doing in an ideal website. And then they decide some point of this map. Again, another example, there is this company called Flatiron Health. They were basically helping doctors on the trial enrollment, which in Italian means diagnosi, basically, regarding tumors. So when you have cancer, there are like a lot of different kind of cancer, and it's a pain to find the correct diagnosis in order to cure people. There's a lot of effort involved in this, and it can take days, which is not a good position for a person with a sick health. And they wanted to solve some of those problems. So they started from the patient, that goes to the doctor, then it goes to researcher, and yada, yada, yada. And all the points of the pain points and each step by all the actors is put on a map like this. And then you pick a target. It means that you decide which kind of actor you want to follow and which point you want to solve. So, and that's what will guide you in every day after the first one, because that's your goal. You want to solve search for matching trials for the coordinator. So this is the goal. And this helps you the next day to don't go against this guy, because if you lose the goal, if you lose the goal in your mind, then time will screw you up. Last thing that you do the first day, you talk with experts. What does it mean? You are probably doing your job very well, but again, you need diverse point of view. You are not just the guy who's doing the job. You're not your customers. You're not your clients. All those people are more expert than you on all those subjects. On different subjects. So you want to talk with them easily 3-4 people, but really it depends on how much you want to go in depth with each people and the kind of questions. And you try to gather as much information as you can about the process you wrote before. And that's the first day. Second day, sketch. As I told before, not every person in the sprint must be a designer, which might be scary for a day like this. But you don't have to worry. Usually the stuff that comes out from the sprint is like this. Not really. It's more like this, but point is you want to have something drawn, not something talk, not something wrote, because you need to communicate as fast as you can, as precise as you can with all the people in your team, and drawing stuff helps a lot too. So as I told before, everyone can sketch. Ugly is okay, it's just a way of communicating. And another interesting point is that group brainstorming is scientifically proved to be broken. Whoa. But a lot of people still doing it because, you know, brainstorming, such a cool word. And but the truth is you need diverse point of view again, so you put people and tell them, okay, now you will sketch, even if you're not a designer, your drawing skills are suckers. And so you get more material, you get more point of views, you get a lot of perspective from people which are maybe less charismatic but have actually good ideas. Then, third day, which is the hardest one, at least for me, you have to decide, but you have just one day to do it. So you're trying to solve a big problem, you sketched it the day before, everyone provided a solution and had a sketch, and you have no time to get through the loop. What's the problem here? Well, human interaction is quite pattern guided, and the feedback loop usually works like this. Hey, I think that this is a good solution. I don't agree with you. That's not so interesting. No, I think it's good because yada, 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 yada. And then the guy, oh, that's a good point. But then another guy, because I remember we were 7 people. Oh no, I think that my solution is better. Yada, yada, yada. Good point. The third guy, oh no, but my solution was better. You can go through this loop for hours. You probably have been there. And this wastes tons of time. Why? Because I have never seen a product trying to sell me something. This timer just speaks for himself. I don't have the producer of the time timer telling me, hey, time timer is a good solution because yada yada yada. No, I'm just using it, and he's not an advocate of itself. So the, let's call it technique, is the art museum style. So you put stuff on the walls like this. You don't explain to other people. You can use text, though. You can write, but you can't talk to your co-workers or your team. Why? Because it must explain by itself. If you need to explain it, it's not a good. That's a good joke about design, but it's true. And so every person in the team will watch each sketch and try to understand and try to get the best solution, again, by themselves. Then, here, do you see anything weird about this design? Except the drawing, which I know is not good, sorry.
Colors, dots.
Yes, color dot votation, dot voting. This means, again, that since you're alone, you don't want to talk to people because you're a sociopath, probably. And you can use dot voting. Dot voting is super easy. I mean, they're just dot stickers. Crazy technology. And you can put dot stickers on the thing you think they are the best. In the end of the process, the decision maker will see the places with more dots, and it's very visually compelling because you can see the place where the dots are more intense, and it's visually very simple to see. But then in the end, the decision maker, who is usually some guys who happen to decide in your company, is the guy who decides. So he can decide or she can decide to go against all the other decision because he saw something that you didn't saw in the first place, or he can just go with the flow and having feedback from every other person in the sprint. This is very convenient. At the end of the day, this is like a very busy day, you have a storyboard. So you put on the sketches, you don't voted for the best solution, someone has decided, and you have a storyboard of the whole story you're trying to solve. This is like a true story. This is my own sprint, some photos of stuff that I signed that I won't reveal to everyone, so please don't share. And so at the end you have a storyboard, and this is your guideline for the 4th day, which is prototype. Now you're probably thinking, haha, that guy, Giulio Michelon, you told us we won't build anything. Now you're asking me, a prototype in 1 day? It doesn't work like this. I mean, unless you're the guys from before with cool bots and stuff, they can do prototype in 1 day, probably working prototype. But the point is, you don't really need to build the entire product. You just need a facade. You know, Sergio Leone movies, when there are the Western guys, but all the facades are the only thing that they have from the city. All the other stuff is empty. So this is the quality you need for your sprint, because during the 5th day you will test your solution with your final customers. They will say, hey, it looks legit to me. Well, what does it mean? You have to build just enough to get them to believe that this is working. So I will get through some example now. Yeah, famous brand. So if your product is on a screen, you don't need to implement it. I mean, if you're more comfortable with implementing stuff, it's cool. But like me, I'm really slow and not good at implementing stuff. You can use Keynote or PowerPoint or Marvel or InVision, which are basically linking pictures. But if you're using it, it looks like a legit interface. Like you just don't care if they are just pictures. If it's on paper, you can use Keynote, PowerPoint, or Word. Now you're probably asking yourself, why should I try stuff on paper? Well, there is a lot of user experience involved in papers. I don't know if you ever paid like taxes or this kind of thing. User experience of that stuff sucks. You know, when you read, there is problemi penali if you write wrong stuff, but then it's a nightmare to write it down. You don't feel so happy. So yeah, it would be awesome to run sprints on stuff which is written, and it's often the case, like for sales management and stuff like this. If it's a service, you can use actors. Again, this is not just like like a butler service. So yes, sir, you call me for hot martini? Nope. Even a bot can be mocked up with just people of your team. Like if I create a user on Facebook and I call it like bot, and I reply you, it works, and you can just believe that it's someone, sorry, just a bot, unless I send you GIFs, but it's really working. Then if it's a physical space, you can just modify an existing space. This is like very hardcore, but there are some examples of these as well. And if it's an object, you can print it, 3D print it, you can modify an existing product, or you can just mock the marketing part. I have an experience from this one. During my own sprint, we prototyped a hardware gear that measure electricity consumption. We called electricisti in English. Electricians. We called them electricians, and they had the thing in hand, and they had an app which was communicating through Bluetooth, except that the box was empty. So again, if your facade, where was it? If your facade looks like an entire condo, then in the end you can make it believable. Last day, which usually the easiest one because you did all the job on the days before, you ask 5 people, 5 customers to test your products. So you give them in their hands and you say, hey, I developed this brand new time timer. It's a timer, it takes time, and it's red where blah, 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 blah. And then you user test it. What does it mean? That they try it, you just don't tell anything, and you ask them to do stuff, and you see what happens. All the team that participated on the sprint stays in another room and see what happens. Why? Because you're trying to learn, you're not trying to make people use your product. You're not the advocate of your product, you're not going there and saying, hey, you know, it's just that easy, you can use this function, it helps you 10 times, do your stuff 10 times faster. Nope, because it's not like it works in the real world. Your products are muted. Unless you put a video, but whatever, I mean. And that's it. So this is the 5th day. You got all the information you could get from the product, hopefully. Hopefully the sprint didn't burn, because it's really hard to get through all the days correctly. It's quite a lot of work. But in the end, you learned something very important on a point that you defined as very important, and you got the goal from the very beginning in the last part, understood from the point of view of your customers. Okay, so I've run a sprint by myself with another company. Actually, I was the facilitator, which means the guy who goes there and tells people, hey, time is up, hey, next activity is this one, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm acting as a designer as well in the sprint, because we are the design company for that company. And there are some points very interesting that I saw. First one, the best designers are not designers. I'm saying this against my job. But if you talk enough to people that works on the product, you will surely find stuff that you didn't saw in the first place. Moreover, we had this guy from post-sales support, which is basically replying on the phone the whole day with angry people. Best job in the world. But they know the product very well. They know the customers very well. He sketched the best mockups. We not voted and stuff that I told you before, and in the end, the decision maker chooses solution over mine. It's disappointing, but whatever. That's not the point. It's not an ego race. So best designer usually are not designer in a sprint. Maybe then they can't like really refine the prototype. They can't do it like beautifully visually crafted, but for the meaning part, they are super useful. Then another tip is, if you want to try a sprint, bring developers to the sprint. If you're like a design company and you're building a digital product, or if you're, I don't know, architects, and then you will build an actual place and so on, you need to involve people that will actually build the thing, because they know the technical limitation, they know the timing limitation, and they can help you during the prototype phase. Example given again, the box that we had for the company that we ran the sprint for, it could light up. It had some controls that are familiar for the electrician guys. So without their help, I would have never been able to build such a trustable hardware. And then you will never access that amount of information via email, via briefing, via just plain old communication. If you're trying to work with another company, this is like a very, very good place to gather information from one company to another, to their customer to another. I mean, it really helps a lot to exchange information between all the people involved. So this may sound a little bit trivial, but I was very surprised by myself on the amount of information that we took in just 5 days. I don't know how many of you are already working, but from a working time, 5 days are like very, very fast. They are very small amount of time. In those days, I really understood the necessity of the company, the pain of the customers, and I had an actual idea of what was going on. Another, let's say, yeah, a couple of points. people from the company that I work for were very happy about the sprint. They're not used to talk to customers. These like, if there are designers in the room, probably they're like, yeah, okay, you should talk to customers. This is like rule number one. But companies are not doing this as much as they should. And in a matter of fact, most of the companies have very few knowledge of the final customers because they work on several levels. Like there's the people of the product, then there are people of the sales, then there are people of the markets, and then there are people who use your products. And you just talk to the next level from your one, from the one you're leading, let's say. So these can be like very meaningful for a company point of view. For a startup, instead, life is not just on product hunt. You need to talk to people. It's just own thing. Already said a lot of time, but it's true. Yeah. So that was it. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, now I have time, like for questions. And last thing, actually we are hiring non-design people, unfortunately, because we are just founder, luckily. But we are looking for a front-end developer proficient in JavaScript, and for a backend developer proficient in backend, which I know is not a language, but it means that he can use his brain. Yeah, so if you're interested or something, I'm here the whole evening. Yeah, so time for the question.
Questions?
So everyone of this team for the sprint is locked up basically in one single place in one room.
That's
all the
yeah.
time, more or less.
That's a good point. From the company perspective, you are asking a lot of effort, and at least for me, I've been able to ask them to do this kind of exercise just because we worked for a long time before. Again, it really depends on the size of the company, on the goals that you have. It's complex. For a corporate, I'm sure that is harder than for a startup, because a startup has basically no decision chain. It's one of the hardest part. From my point of view, it's worth it. At least from the outcome that I saw, it was really worthwhile. But yeah, everyone is stuck in the room 9 to 5 with a lunch break. So you can answer to email, you can't really do job unless you don't like to read.
But you could say that there's the decision maker that can come.
Yeah, actually the decision maker can come just during the decision phases. But this is not like really recommended because you don't see the whole process and you may not understand some decisions. But yeah, that can be the case.
And also in the book it says that it's not really worth it. Some people just came there, they took a decision and it was the wrong one because they didn't follow up. So
yeah,
better to look now.
Yeah, there is a book about stuff. It's not invented by me.
Yeah. Miguel?
Okay, I have two questions. The first question is...
Oh, raise your volume.
Yeah, sorry. The first question is, day number 2 is sketching, and day number 3 is decision. In sketching, you're sketching alone. In decision, you cannot really talk to other people to explain. So are you basically spending 2 entire days not talking to anybody? The second question is, does it have to be 5 consecutive days?
Okay. So on the first question, you have like I cutted some corners on the explanation. Otherwise, it was like at least 1 hour. There are some very brief confrontational moments, but they are usually put after some decisions. Not after the decision maker, but they are like very tight and time boxed, and not as much as you would if you are the owner of the prototype. They are usually like a couple of minutes per prototype. And yeah, actually, I made it sound like you're like alone and no one is talking. It's like you can't exchange any word. Actually, there is a lot of discussion during the days, but because it will just happen, you can't just block people as you probably imagine. The point is when you work on the core part, that is the part when you need the most to be like focused. And the second question.
Does it have to be 5 consecutive
Yeah.
days?
Again, not. I mean, actually, it doesn't even mean it doesn't even need to be 5 days. If you are like an expert designer, you already know all those techniques, and you can just cut here and there and get what you need in 3 days, in 2 days, in just user testing. It really depends. So everything here is like optional. These, from the Google guys, has been the most successful way to do it. So the answer is no, it doesn't have to, but it's highly suggested.
Well, question. Tiago? Okay, sorry. Go.
During the last day, you said you were testing on your customers. So, can you explain where is the focus on sailing or actually on
running
feedback? Yes, because you said that you don't really. Like you said at the beginning or in the middle that product must talk about itself. So, yeah.
So your question is.
So you're collecting feedback about and you recording video in order to learn how to better sell it or how to better explain.
It depends on the goal. Like if your goal for the sprint is I want to test my marketing campaign in order to sell more. The main goal of your sprint is selling. But if your sprint goal is I want to understand better my tax deductions from a web interface, then you try to understand if people understand it. It really depends on the goal. So user testing is making hypotheses, seeing how people react, and learn. So the hypothesis can be as broad as you want.
What are the next steps after a design sprint? You gather a lot of information, you learn a lot, but do you action on that information, and how do you measure that?
It's a good question. It depends. Again, it's really the good answer to anything. So if you're like stuck with a lot of questions, like you're very stuck, you can just find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sprints, one next to other, because maybe you're trying to pivot your company. On the other hand, if you have just one very important point that you want to go deep into, then after the sprint, it's time to action. You have to actually build the stuff. No one will do it for you. Again, it depends on your time schedule and everything, but it's very rare that you have the time to do more than one sprint. So you try to tackle the hardest point to understand what you should do, and then from there on, you have to go back to the product.
In most of the cases, for example, during a sprint you were generating a prototype, let's say a functioning prototype of part of an application. The next step after the design sprint was to develop that part and to do, for example, a beta testing to check if there was a significant increase in that part or in the other one. Or, for example, there was this guy using, like they were having a robot going around the hotel to bring stuff to their customers. So they faked it using a robot, but putting a tablet on top of it, showing a face and talking to people. So after that, they developed it and they put it on the market because they noticed that the customers were like extremely happy with the product. So as Giulio said, it definitely varies.
Yeah, they were trying to test the personality. As soon as they saw that the personality was okay and was making customer happier, then they developed it actually in real life.
But it really depends on you can use a design sprint also for a business planning, for example, because you're stuck, you don't know how to get on the market, how to scale up a product or whatever.
Yeah. Slack, for example, they use it for their marketing campaign. So.
Final question?
Yeah, I was just wondering.
Okay, I'll just go with. Okay, we have another one.
So it looks like a very tight schedule, and like what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if you run out of time one day? Then, like, should you just get over with that lost time in the next day, or?
Again, some days are heavier than another ones, so it depends. Like the decision day, it's very hard. We overtime by a couple of hours, which doesn't sound like a lot of work because you work like 9 to 5 and you have lunch break, so it's not like you're not building houses. But if you do overtime on this kind of techniques, you're taking decisions, which is the hardest thing that your brain can do. You have like a limited number of decisions during your day, so you can decide, or you go overtime, or you just decide that the sprint screws up, and I don't know what happens. I mean,
maybe you can rescale your goal. Maybe you could go too big, or
it can be. You should try to get a very limited goal, something you can prototype. Again, that's a good question about the sketching part, because usually during the sketching part you can just take all different points and then decide which point you will have to build during the prototype day. You can just cut the part that you won't be able to build in just one day. So it's just common sense and trying to stay in the deadlines. Again, if you really need to test that stuff, maybe you just need more time than a sprint alone. But again, you can work on that next week or something.
Julia's running out of time.
Yeah.
Final question.
Very last question.
Can this work if you have more than one decision maker? So it seems to me like you have to appoint one, otherwise you can't.
Well, it depends on how they are internally organized. So, well, if you are 2 people and 2 people have the same vote, this is unfortunate because it can take a lot of time and it can go straight to the feedback loop, which is no fun. But you can decide that one decision maker can decide more than the other one. So giving, for example, 2 dots and just one to the other, and cast the votes at the beginning all together, and then the last one decide for the last dot. In my case, I had two decision makers. One was the head of the unit, and the other one was the head of the department. But it really depends on how much they trust each other again. You can find some kind of shortcuts to make them decide by definition, but you can't not decide. But it depends on the hierarchy of the company. If they have the same power, that's harder.
Very last question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks again, Giulio. Before everyone goes away, okay, we have to speak, but we ask you to get all the chairs and pile them up, all the white with the white ones, all the orange with the orange ones, and so on. You pile them and you bring them here, and then we start moving out the spec and put them away from the tables, because we're gonna put the spec over the tables. Cheers to our Facebook friends.